Okay, welcome to AP World History, Chapter 5, section, or Part 1 here. This chapter will focus on China as one of our last founding civilizations. We've talked about the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, the Indians. Now we'll focus on the Chinese, civilization that's still very powerful today, of course. This section here will talk about its foundings. We'll talk about, in particular, three founding dynasties of the Xia, the Shang, and the Zhou dynasties. These are regional powers, fairly small compared to later Chinese dynasties. They were decentralized, meaning they basically gave power out to other people who ran themselves. There wasn't a central figure who made most of the decisions. Their agriculture, none of this is possible without agriculture, of course, and around 7000 BCE is when they went through their Neolithic revolution, the agricultural revolution, and began cultivating food and founding towns. There are two major river dynasties, or river valleys that these people evolved along. The first is the Yellow River, which we'll focus more on in this chapter, and the second is the Yangtze River, which is much more calm. Now, the early Chinese had these myths about three founding sage kings. Of the three sage kings, the most important, of course, was Yu. And Yu was the most important because he's accredited the feat of taming the Yellow River. Now, there have been at least two instances I know of that the Yellow River has supposedly flooded and killed upwards of 1 million Chinese people, the worst natural disasters in human history. So it was very important that the Chinese got a hold of the Yellow River's power and used it to their own benefit. And basically what you have going on here is you have these small villages that are growing up, and as they grow they need more oversight from a figure outside. When you're dealing with town to town to town, you need somebody that's making decisions for multiple towns. So what Xia did, they were a family that came to power, and they began making decisions for larger groups of people. They tried to organize public life on a grand scale. When they needed walls for protection, somebody's got to sit there and say, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and basically be the person that gets stuff done. Well, the Xia took that mantle upon themselves, and this gave them great power. They also they encouraged metallurgy. Of the time period, of course, it's bronze metallurgy. They kept this bronze ability pretty much to themselves. This gave them an advantage in society and higher status, of course. Now, they don't do as good of a job as the people that replaced them. The Shang replaced them because the Xia falls on some weak rulers, and the Shang basically overthrow them. The Shang are much better at making sure that the bronze stays in their hands only. They guard the mines. They don't let just anybody in there. They arm their military with bronze weapons, which gives them an advantage. They use bronze dishes and stuff. It's a social thing. If you walk into someone's house and there's bronze there, well, they're the rich people. Kind of like a little Lamborghini today. So bronze is a sign of wealth for the Shang. Shang come in about 1766 BCE, and they're around until 1122 BCE, so roughly 600 years that this family is in control of this region. So, over twice as long as the United States has been a country, so an immensely long time. Without a doubt, they monopolized bronze, allowed them huge amounts of power. They also adopted the horse and chariot from migrating Indo-Europeans, who not only made it into India, like we talked about last chapter, but who actually make it all the way to China. Again, weren't centralized. They relied on a network of allies to make sure that their will was done. You kept people happy and say, hey, I want this done. The people would do it for you, and that's kind of how they worked. It wasn't, I'm going to come in and smash you with my armies necessarily. They didn't quite have that level of power at this time. Shang society revolved around several major cities. In fact, their capital most likely alternated between 6 different cities over their period of 600 years. It's nothing different. Even America, Washington, D.C. was not actually always the capital. At one time it was Philadelphia, another time it was New York. So even America, in its brief history, has had at least 3 different capitals. All right. Now, the Shang dynasty is going to be replaced by the Zhou dynasty. And what I'm going to do, we're going to talk more about the Zhou in the second part of this lecture. Okay.